An excerpt from Major Minerva's Guide to the Podcast Quadrant. Mastery of one's podcast does not occur in the first season, nor in the years directly after. No host alive truly believes they've reached the limitations of their audience. The canceled ones may feel differently.
Welcome back to Between Pages and Friends, a book club podcast hosted by Con and Lauren, two book-loving besties, and Jon and Kyle, their real-life book boyfriends. I'm Lauren.
I'm Con.
I'm Kyle.
And I'm Jon. In today's episode, we're discussing chapters 45 through 55 of Iron Flame from the Empyrean Series by Rebecca Yarros. This is a book club-style podcast, meaning there will be no spoilers here for future chapters or books, so if you've only read up to this point, this is a safe space to read along with us. We'd love for you to share this podcast with your book besties and or significant other as well, so you can enjoy this epic series together too.
Additionally, this is your mild content warning. Iron Flame is a new adult book, meaning it was written for audiences 18 and up. Therefore, our conversations about this book are also best suited to adults. We will be discussing themes and quotes from this section that include the throne room scene.
Swoon.
We'd love to have you as part of our Patreon family and get to know you more. We have 2-tier options for you to choose from. One is $5 a month, the other is $10 a month. You can join our Discord chat, share stories, be nerdy together, plus we have live events, monthly book clubs, merch discounts, and a ton more. We can't wait to welcome you into our community of bookworms, so head over to Patreon to see which tier works best for you. You can find the link in the description below.
Lastly, the best way to support any podcast is by writing a review on Audible or Apple Podcasts. It only takes a moment and it makes a lasting impact, helping our show reach new book besties. Here's a recent 5-star review from Apple Podcasts from our new bestie, Ashley Edda, titled Just the Best. I found your podcast from your Instagram page. I went through and watched almost all of Jon's reactions to ACOTAR books and wanted more. Enter the podcast. Maybe I'm breaking the rules since I did not start a second read through as I binged through the Fourth Wing episodes. How can one stop and read in between upside down emoji? Then I couldn't wait for Wednesday, so I went back to the Throne of Glass episodes. I love experiencing the books again and getting all of your theories and questions. As others have mentioned, it feels like I'm part of an insider book club. I don't have many friends to geek out with about these books, so I will sit here laughing out loud at you, ... I mean, with you all, cry emoji. I am already crying inside that I'm almost done listening to all your pre-recorded episodes. Thank you so much, Ashley, for listening and binging it all, which is so wild to me when people do that.
Yes.
But thank you for being here. We love you so much.
Thanks, Ashley.
So sweet. You're the best. And welcome back to Con's Declassified Fantasy Pronunciation Guide, where we are referencing the audiobooks narrated by Rebecca Soler to highlight all the new names and places mentioned in this chapter section. First up in places, we have the Precipice Pass, the winding trading route up the northeast side of the Cliffs of Draelor, bordering the Deaconshire province. Pavis was the town taken by Venin in this section. In characters, we have Professor Keandra, the flyer professor, now in Eratia. Lucas is Ree's baby nephew with the little chubby cheekers. Other students mentioned are Traeger, Knave, Bragan, Marin, Kai, and Lynx. And then from the death roll, RIP, we have Coralie Ryle, Nikolai Panya, the brother of Isar Panya, Krissa Verlin, Micah Renfrew, Alvar Gilana, Naira Valderin, who was the senior ringleader from Book 1, may their souls be commended to Malik. From Texan excerpts, we have Venin, a compendium by Captain Drake Cordella, The Nightwing Drifts. This is Kat and Serena's cousin Drake that was mentioned in the last chapter section. Public Notice 628.86, transcribed by Sorella Neilwert, in which we learned that the power to represent Tyrrendor in the King's Cenarium was transferred from the House of Ryerson to the House of Llewellyn with the Treaty of Eratia. And then the Eratia Accord, which is presumably a new text being written as the code of conduct for this new makeshift academy in Eratia. And lastly, a study on signets by Major Dalton Cisneros. For dragons and griffins, we have Kiralair, Cat's Griffin, or Kira for short. Thwart, Sloane's Red Daggertail. Thwart means taken or to take from, which is interesting, knowing that her signet has manifested in this section. Kruth is Quinn's Green Scorpion Tail, meaning form, figure, or shape. Mala is Naira's Red Scorpion Tail, RIP. No real specific name meaning for that one. World building, finally, we have a Venin hierarchy from the Compendium by Drake Cordella, in which we learn that initiates have reddish rings to their eyes that come and go depending on how often they drain. Asims, their eyes fluctuate in degrees of red and their veins distend when riled. sages, or those responsible for initiates, their eyes are permanently red, their veins perpetually distended toward their temples, expanding with age. And then finally, mavens, which are their generals, but we don't know anything about them yet. It says none have ever been captured for examination. Lastly, on today's pronunciation guide, we have maorsite, which is a type of ore that is less rare than palladium, but roughly 10 times more explosive. Now I'm kicking it over to Jon for our chapter recap of Iron Flame chapters 45 to 55.
Oh yeah, about to get wiggity whack. They're in formation as Devera is reading off the death roll, now the names of those who have fallen at outposts. Violet waits anxiously for Mira's name, but it's not called. We learn that Kat has been doing some random things to annoy Violet, such as showing up at Xaden's room, knowing Violet is there, and nothing but a Deverelli silk gown, practically see-through. Fan art? Never mind. Then they're summoned for a new class the next day with Professor Trissa.
Jonathan!
While waiting, Sawyer asks Vi to teach him sign language for Jacinia. How cute is that? Trissa shows up and starts to teach them about runes and how they are weaved from small strands of their own power. She demonstrates crafting an intricate-looking rune and placing it into a board that she has. The board smokes, and as she shows the students, the rune that she weaved is burned into the board. Pretty cool. They practice making an unlocking rune, and some of them are successful, Kat and Violet included. Later on, Violet is crafting a rune while her and Xaden chat. She figures out that he had put an unlocking rune in that dagger that he gave her that helped them get out of the RSC interrogation. Then she asks about the small rune he keeps by his bed. He tells her that it's a very complicated rune, one that only Liam and Sloane's mom could have made, Colonel Maori, which she placed into all 107 stones, one for each of the marked ones. It was designed to counter the signet of the rider whose dragon killed their parents, referring back to the execution when all that happened. After a bit, we learn that more fighting has broken out between riders and flyers, so the professors take some action. They make a decision to let them hash it out on the mat. For the next 6 hours, the flyers can challenge a rider on the mat to settle their differences. Afterwards, each rider squad will absorb a flyer squad and merge as one. Of course, Kat challenges Violet, and Violet quickly realizes that Xaden trained them both. Violet realizes that she needs to change up her attack style, so she digs deep into her inner Rhiannon and gets the upper hand, also realizing that Kat is using her power to work Vi up into a frenzy. Violet starts to choke her to death, and, unfortunately, she ends up letting go with the help of Xaden. He takes her to the throne room and sits her on the throne as she calms down. He starts to take off her boots and her pants, taking us into this week's episode of Emoji Erotica. And I read...
Emojis! Erotica! Something I never thought I would be cheering for.
2 of my favorite things.
Oh my gosh.
Connor.
Here we go. All right. Chair, boot, one eyebrow raised, smirk, socks, kissy face, pants, leg, cat emoji, mouth, tongue, rose, leg, fire, thought bubble, tongue, rose, 1 finger, 2 fingers, lion, shouting emoji, wave, wave, lightning, globe, crown, chair, leg, leg, tongue, rose, shadows, brain, thought bubble, lightning, lightning, exasperated face, eyes shut emoji, and 1 eyebrow raised.
That's good.
And that's this chapter section segment of Emoji Erotica.
Might be the best one yet, honestly.
I was cackling.
I hope you all get the innuendos of all those emojis. I really do. That was a good one.
I feel like this one was a little more straightforward than others.
Yeah,
On the
that was
nose.
intense.
Yeah.
Viewers, send that text to your parents and see if they know what you're talking about.
Oh my gosh.
See if they can figure it out. I mean, with no context.
Make it a chain letter.
Send this to 10 other people.
Honestly, if I did that right now, my mom would be like, "Hi, Zoe," because she'd think our toddler was sending her emojis.
Yep, that's exactly right. All right, they do their thing. They take the train from Pleasure Town back to Realityville and talk through what just happened with Kat. Iron Squad gives patches to the new flyers. Kat's flyers, actually. That's who the squads, that's who the, yep. Cat Squad was absorbed into Violet Squad, into Second Squad, yes. You knew what I was saying. They barely make it through the exchange, though, with Violet getting the last laugh, thanking Kat for her naughty fingers suggestion. Then they go to the library where Vi has asked for Dane's help in translating some Krovlish books that Takaris gifted Violet. They work on translating some of it. She finds out that he can imbue just like Xaden, and she asks him to do it to the Wardstone. 1 week later, Violet is practicing with Felix. She's able to wield with a little control now. She heads back to Ryerson House and finds out that Venin took a small town near Dreythus, and a really good writer died in the process. What's her name again?
Exactly.
I know her
Naira.
Naira.
Naira, she's from book 1. She was the senior wing leader over all the wings.
And Naira dies in the process, unfortunately. She finds Xaden, and they have some chocolate cake while he tells her what happened, since he was also there. A couple more weeks go by. Her and Dane are almost finished translating the books. It's late. He heads out, and she stays for a minute to translate a little bit more, and she notices that the Krovlish word that they thought was blood, that was a big deal when they found out about that, is actually breath, and that their initial translation of the 6 was actually the breath of the 6 most powerful dragons, not the blood of the riders. Big deal there. She goes to tell Rhiannon. I think the next day or shortly after, Violet gets the whole of Second Squad together to tell them what they've learned and the info on the wards, giving the flyers mainly an option to kind of make their own decision, since once the wards are up and running, the flyers' power is actually negated, so they won't be able to use their power. Violet then has another bad dream. It's getting all too suspicious here as the dreams themselves are feeling more and more real. They have some flight maneuver contest the next day. Right as they're getting started, Xaden arrives. She briefly tells him about what she learned with the wards, and then they fly off for their contest. They have to find more runes scattered about the mountains than their opposition. They're checking out a cave within one of the mountains, and Darna and Kat's Griffin are with them. Taryn is like patrolling close by, kind of checking for other power sources to find. They do find one in the cave, but as they go to leave, Solus, of all things, is blocking their path. And unfortunately, he swats Vizia against the side of the cave with a crunch. There's not a word for it. I pictured the sound of like a Cheeto, like the crunch of a Cheeto here. I don't know why. You know what I mean?
Oh my God.
Yeah, I get you.
You know what I mean, though? Yeah, you get it. But R.I.P.
R.I.P.
He knocks the rest of them back too, which causes Vi's conduit to break on the cave floor, and Darna shields the group from his initial attack of fire. Violet throws some daggers towards him, getting him in his other eye, which I thought was pretty hilarious. He's freaking out, but gives enough space for Kat to grab Sloane and get out past him, and Darna then goes after Solus. Vi grabs her broken conduit and races towards Solus and like wedges it under his scales or something, and then starts to flow her power into it. He gets her with his tail, knocking her back. She like cracks her head against the rock. Kat and Sloane, they race back in to help grab Vi, take her out of the cave, and then Darna, little BA here, she finishes him off inside. But I will say, Kyle, did we see a body?
Yeah, we didn't.
I don't know. That's all I'm saying.
Of
That's all I'm
Solus?
saying. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess.
I'm more
we didn't
confused about
see-
how they got past the body. He was
Yeah,
crammed
very
in that cave. How'd they
He was.
shove his belly back?
Good question.
But back in Eurasia, Vi is getting patched up when Xaden comes in. And then they have another idiotic conversation about trust in their relationship. Violet asks him what his second signet is, which makes him freeze up. But before she can press much further, Brennan pounds on the door with news of a horde of wyvern heading their way.
Well, how dare they? Let's get into it. Chapter 45.
45. I'm starting us off with our pre-chap.
Preach up.
The pre-chap says...
I saw the wind up. I didn't know what was going to happen though.
Wow. I did not see the wind up. I was getting ready to read my note.
Strong start.
That was amazing. Okay. The pre-chap is actually a little bit longer than what I have highlighted here, but the part that I highlighted says they, being Venin, had begun to take recruits, teaching those who never bonded a griffin to channel what was not theirs to take. I know that like Violet had been questioning I don't know if she had really questioned, but she started like looking again at Basgiath, why do we just kill everybody off? Or like, is this heartless? Is it helpful to us whenever we do see our friends die on the battlefield? Or is this, a negative thing? And the Griffin writers were like, yeah, that's totally messed up kind of a thing. And so with that in my brain, this made me wonder if maybe this is another thing Basgiath does. Like because so many of them die, they know that they could never turn around and just start channeling. As where the Griffins, like the Griffin riders try to get a Griffin and then they don't. And then they're so mad and upset because they dedicated their whole life to this moment and they never get another chance. And so then they start to channel and they like take all that rage and energy. And I feel like I could see that if the parapet wasn't straight up death and people fell. And then they'd be, you know, like some of those, like Dylan or whoever else that had dedicated literally everything to that moment. And then maybe turn and become Venom. So this is like me totally random speculating. It has no facts whatsoever. But I don't know. Interesting thought.
It is. I like it. My next note here is about the Develli robe again, or Deverelli silk robe. This is when she's telling the gang about Kat showing up at Zayden's bedroom. She says, "How do I know it was Deverelli silk, you ask? Because it was pretty much see-through." My note in here was like, you don't say.
Of course that's your first note.
I laughed so hard at Sawyer's response to Violet telling them this because he was like, "Oh, damn, why would she... Are you..." And Riddick finally smacks him upside his head and goes, "Think about where she sleeps." The whole exchange was so funny.
He was trying to think about where she sleeps.
Like, would you be into that, Violet? Or like, I don't know.
Are you into that?
Speaking of Sawyer, I thought the whole scene where like he was trying to ask Violet to teach him signing and for some reason was sort of like shy about it, and her slowly learning what he was trying to ask was a good scene. And I can't help but root for those kiddos, Sawyer and Jacinia.
I know, they're so cute.
They are cute.
I do kind of wish that the whole concept of Riddick teaching him the wrong words for things could have played out, only because that's very funny. I get it, and I'm kind of glad for her.
To have Jacinia go to Violet and be like, "You wouldn't believe what your friend asked me."
I just think it'd be so funny.
Yeah.
So they're talking here about how Rhiannon's family like uprooted and moved to Eurasia. And in Violet's POV, she's kind of going through like whose family is coming. And it says Riddick's dad should arrive any day, but we haven't had word from Sawyer's parents yet. This just struck me here that Sawyer also can't sign when most of these other people seem to be able to do that. And the fact that his parents haven't responded to this like request to come to Eurasia to be safe. I'm just wondering if Sawyer's parents might be loyal to Navarre, and maybe that's like a reach with those literally the only two pieces of information we have about them, but it just made me think about that when I read this part.
Is learning sign language not like a thing against Navarre?
I don't know. It just seems like most of the people that can sign are marked ones, but then even like Riddick and Rhiannon seem to be able to do. Yeah. Can Rhiannon sign?
I think everybody can.
Yeah.
Riddick said he knows a little bit, mostly the fun words. So he might have just learned those for that reason.
To me, it was that Sawyer failed that class in high school. So I took it. Like he just didn't pay attention as much as he probably should have.
That could definitely be. Yeah, I don't know. I think this just struck me as like, maybe because we've been talking about how all of the other languages were banned or like given up. Like there was a lot of cultural things that were removed from Navarrian history and like banned from Navarre, that I don't know if his parents happened to be loyalists to the point that they wouldn't even respond to this letter about Eurasia and maybe wouldn't have taught him stuff like that. But maybe that's just me way overthinking it. That was just what popped into my head here on a reread.
Well, and on the other side, what if his parents aren't alive and he just doesn't know it or something?
That could also be true.
That's why I wrote my note here was like, oh man, as soon as it said, haven't heard word from Sawyer's parents yet, I was like, I have a bad feeling about that one.
Poor Sawyer.
I hope not.
Hope not.
Poor guy's really going through it.
Whenever it says something like that, I'm always like,
yeah.
Didn't it say that he didn't even tell his parents that he was a repeat?
Was repeating.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
So he hasn't talked to them in 2 years.
Yeah.
So like some of these letters are the first time he's tried to communicate with them.
Yeah.
Because first years can't write letters or whatever.
Yeah, maybe they thought he was dead, and now they're getting a letter saying he's somewhere else and being like, "What the heck?" Like,
yeah, he said something like he told his parents that first and second years couldn't write letters or something like that.
Yeah,
he wrote one.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So that he could like basically lie to his parents.
Side plot there.
Yikes.
Yeah, lots going on with Sawyer. We got the
Yeah.
girl and the parent drama. We need a Sawyer POV. Fill us in.
My next note here was the runes class with Professor Trissa. This is Violet's point of view, where she says, every shape has meaning. The points where we tie the power change that meaning. She goes on, I take another look at the multifaceted shape before she flips the board, speaking of what Professor Trissa made. Holding it to face skyward, and my eyes widen with realization. It's a logosyllabic language, I blurt, like Oluserish or Moranian. My thought here was I assumed these are the knots, or what we find out to be the runes from the book Xaden gave her earlier in the year. It was just like putting two pieces together finally.
Xaden was being sneaky.
Yep, giving
Instead
her
of,
a head start.
just telling the truth and giving her the answers.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, he's lucky that she did it at all.
Yeah,
If he had told her
exactly.
that it was an important thing, she could have just put the book up on a shelf. I'll get to it someday.
Her other arts and crafts.
Yeah.
Very true. I'm just noting here that they talk about how Tirish runes were banned. And this is what Trissa says. They were banned a couple hundred years after the unification of Navarre, even though many of our outposts in Basgiath itself were built upon them. This was just interesting that they were banned likely at the same time that this history was erased in Navarre, too. So I just highlighted that.
Interesting. I guess chapter 46, Xaden was saying that the dagger he gave her unlocked things, but only if it sensed her need to unlock things. And I just wrote a note that said, making a key based on need is, how you say, stupid. A key exists due to need to unlock something. So forcing like a need check onto it is a pointless extra step that you'd only do if you wanted to act like you're giving someone access to something, but still limiting that access based on how you... Oh, wait, never mind. Xaden made it, so that totally makes sense.
Okay, first of all, this is fair. And he definitely could have told her that she had this in her possession. Because she was like...
All of them.
Yeah. Like, if she would have gotten to the luminary, she would have had... Wait, is that what they were referencing? If she would have gotten to the
forge.
luminary, she would have been able to get in. Yeah.
Forge. But like she has so many on her and she still just doesn't ask like, oh, okay, so
Yeah.
what does this one do? What about
Right.
this one? Instead, we're just like living life. I don't know.
Yep.
But this also made me think, like, do the runes or the alloy... I guess I'm confused about the logistics on this. Like, alloy is imbued, so it can only function for so long. Like, it can only spend essentially the amount of magic that was put into it.
Yeah, because
like,
it can be
something
like
they said that you
recharged
could, like,
or whatever, right?
Yeah, you can choose how many
Okay.
charges it has and stuff like that.
So if it didn't have, like, a need check, would it just randomly unlock every door she gets close to and, like, run out of unlocking juice before she really needed a get out of jail free dagger?
I figured it was like you had to be pretty close to the, maybe even like touching the dagger to the lock. Even if it didn't have like a need check on it, you'd have to get pretty close. But they have mage lights running 24/7 at the college. So, I mean, like, surely they can have magic for quite a while before it needs refreshing.
Oh, I see.
But also in the sense of,
didn't
like,
they-
yeah, if you're going to give her a master key to every door, just let her use the key. Why do you trust a dagger to be like, no, you don't need it in there right now. I don't feel it. Not feeling it.
Oh, my next one. I had a note in here as a clarifying question from Rune's class. It's if they could only see their power, right? I thought that was super interesting how they couldn't do that before, and literally just after like a very brief time, it's like, oh, they can somehow now like see those little strands of power that they can form runes from. I would love to see like an image of that, though. I think that would be pretty cool. Because it is
So fan art of the Deverelli silk robe and
please.
then also the runes class.
Yep.
Both at the same time.
Just the robe or cat in the robe?
Because is it like
Or cut out
is
of
it like an aura type of thing like around them, or is it?
I figured it was like those pens that you like write on air in movies. I pictured
Yes.
it like that. Like they would make the runes like that, and then
Okay.
they push it onto something. That's what I had in my head.
Yeah.
Or like when you have a sparkler?
Or the Disney Channel.
Yes, the Disney Channel one. That's a good one.
I'm Violet Sorengale and you're watching Iron Flame. Or like I just am picturing like Harry Potter where they're drawing a memory
Right.
out with like the wand and
Yeah.
you can kind of see the little tendril of magic.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
It is
But-
funny that it's like probably a really basic magic to do, but yeah, the college just didn't teach it. So
Womp womp.
yeah, but you know what? The Flyers don't have ink pens, so suck it.
Got him.
My next note here is sort of a stream of consciousness, so bear with me. But Xaden's explaining the rune from Liam's mom, and this was kind of my train of thought here, just because none of this really registered for me on a first read. So he's saying that was the rune the reason for the rebellion relics, or was it just what protected them when Melgren's dragon created the relics?
I think yes.
Did that occur to any of you?
Oh, interesting.
Yes, both.
I'm so sorry. Say that again.
So, like, Lilith told Mira that Melgren's dragon was the one who who made the rebellion relics.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Was it that, or was it the rune because they were all holding it in their fist and it goes up their arm?
I think it was both. Because, like, the fire is what activated the protection.
Oh,
the
that's
rune
right.
was what,
yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so it might have been both. Because
that those runes are a
Yeah.
thing, except for the 107. So from Mira's point of view, when that dragon killed them, then the relic showed up. And so she would think his dragon did that. She wouldn't know that rune stone was a thing.
I feel
Why
like
would
maybe
she?
she did. I don't know.
So that
And why would she tell Mira?
Well, she didn't tell Mira about the runes. She told Mira about Melgren's dragon. What were you going to say, John?
I think that is, I was seeing if you had it written here, but she mentions it's something that's why it started from their arm, or that's why all the marked ones relics start from their hand, or like from their wrist, because they were holding the stone. So yeah, I think it was both.
Okay, but I forgot the piece where, like you said, that it was triggered by the dragon fire that killed their parents. So that makes sense that it would have happened at the same moment. The rune was also the real reason that marked ones can't be seen by Melgren's signet when they're together, because it was meant to counter the signet.
The dragons who killed.
Right.
Whatever. Yeah.
Counter the signet of the rider of the dragon whose fire killed their parents. Okay. Yes. None of this, I didn't put any of this together on my first read, so I'm just doing it here. But this would also explain why even Julianne was born with one, because it was about the runes were about the bloodline of the person who was killed by dragon fire. So that's like also our little explanation for that there. But I'm still curious about why Isaac's death, Liam's dad's death, wasn't recorded, because this would mean that Liam's mom was the death that triggered the relic for Liam and Sloane, right? Mm-hmm. But we found out in book 1 that like Isaac's name wasn't on the death roll, and they said that they like killed him. Did they say he killed him? I thought he said he watched his dad die.
They still could have killed him here and just not written on the death roll for whatever reason.
Yeah,
but
I just thought that was interesting. Just a lot of little pieces clicking together in my head in this part.
But we did have this like huge group conversation a couple episodes ago about if Melgren's dragon, was it like a good guy and Melgren was the bad guy or whatever. And this to me confirms that both Melgren and his dragon are on the same team. Whether they're team good guy or team bad guy, I'm unsure.
I could see that.
But I don't think that the dragon did that thinking, I'm going to do this because I know they're all holding these stones or, or whatever. Like,
I think it was a definite attempt. And then after that happened, he was like, well, you told me to burn them and I did. So they survived. They earned it.
Yeah.
So my note here is like still about the same room, but Xaden says our parents knew they'd die one way or another, and the last thing they did was make sure we were protected. I keep it purely for sentimental reasons, but like I would kind of be surprised if it didn't still hold some power. I was thinking maybe this is a little foreshadowing here, but see, I had forgotten, now that we're talking about it, I forgot that it was Melgren's dragon that killed his parents, right?
Yeah.
His dad, yeah.
Well, okay. Well, that like completely negates my thought then, because I was going to say like somehow down the road her mom tries to use her signet on Xaden, but it's protecting him from Melgren's signet, not Lilith's signet.
Oh, I see.
So never mind. You can leave that out.
I mean, it could still have some sort of power we just don't know about.
Yeah. Especially if runes feed off the excess of others.
I mean, I guess if Melgren can still not see the outcome, if they're still gathered together, then it apparently, I don't know if it's straight from the stone or if it like imbued some of the stone's power into their own bodies. So like that's why he can't see. That's why he can't see them.
Maybe the stone can act as the third person. So them and a stone. Two people in a stone.
The two and the stone combined.
I don't know.
Exactly.
No, that's really interesting, though, because that had never occurred to me before either. But it does feel like one of those things where it does almost feel like a line that she would throw in there as foreshadowing or something, where it's like, I keep it purely for sentimental reasons, says the character who doesn't do anything for purely sentimental reasons.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
That's a great point. And what I was going to say earlier is he had it at Basgiath, too. So he even carried it across the parapet. Like, he's kept it with him. So I just wouldn't be surprised if it had some sort of other meaning to it or something.
Yeah.
But
It's doing something.
yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
This whole thing with Liam's mom being the only one able to do this, you know, they're so good at doing runes and all the things. It just makes me even more curious as to what the heck was in that box at Resin with Liam's family crest on it. Like, yes, what was going on there? And like, was it also some cool special magic thing we didn't know about? Is that why it was more explosive or whatever, or super dangerous? I don't know.
I'm sure it's
That's
nothing.
interesting.
My next note was Xaden and Violet leave this conversation with Xaden kind of like eyeing Violet's rune that she's working on for her class and telling her that she needs to add a directional cue, which turns out to be true. When she gets to class, naturally Kat has tempered hers perfectly. And my note was just like, I like this idea here because when she walks out and she like tests it, she can like hear everything from like every direction. And that's when she's like, oh, of course, he's always right. But I loved it, like the idea of like a directional microphone. So she can like point it to her to a certain source and like hear. I thought that was pretty sweet. And also, boo, Kat. I hate her.
Boo.
Hate her.
Unless she's in her silk.
Yes. I mean, it's a minor improvement.
I mean, even Xaden says later in this chapter that you can do those things with somebody and not like them.
Very true. Speaking of Kat, she challenges Violet to a sparring match, and as they're walking up to the mat, Andarna suggests scratch her eyes out. Really, the eyes are the softest tissue. Just jab your thumbs in there. And Taryn cuts her off and goes, Andarna, use some common sense. The kneecaps are a much easier target. I'm like so here for all of their banter in this book, but this one just made me laugh out loud. This is one of my favorite moments with them.
The part that made me laugh out loud in this moment was when Violet said, if I had known that there... Thanks, John. If I had known this was where today was headed, I would have acted earlier. Maybe laced her breakfast with some fonnelly berries I saw growing in the ridge just beneath the valley. I just had to highlight fonnelly because John called them fondle-me berries.
I totally forgot about
the
that.
first time. And that's what made me laugh. I went, fondle-me berries.
Well, at the end of this chapter, Violet's sort of realizing that, oh my gosh, she knows all my moves and I know all of hers. And then she realizes that Xaden trained both of us. And I just put a note that said, I bet that's not all he trained you both in.
Ew.
Maybe that's where Sawyer's train of thought was going.
Maybe that's why she's good at runes, because Xaden was helping her with the runes earlier, too.
Ew. Yeah. I don't like that.
Just saying.
Maybe.
I didn't read the book. I'm sorry. 47.
All right, chapter 47. Had a little note here on the pre-chat blurb on Venom.
Pre-chat.
Blurb. Is that how I did it earlier? I don't even remember anymore.
It was a lot louder,
yeah,
but
yeah. It was like I pictured it as like the boxing announcement. What's the guy's name?
Oh, I don't know the guy's name.
Bruce Buffer. Anyway.
Oh, yeah, duh, Bruce.
Yeah, that guy. I
How could
love
forget
him.
that.
Let's get ready to rumble. That
Classic.
guy. All right.
Let's get ready to rumble. Oh, the guy from Space Jam. Yeah.
Space Jam. Yeah, sure.
I was unaware he had a name.
That a human had a name. Oh, I didn't know.
News to me.
All right. Pre-chat blurb, chapter 47 on Venom. We already read a little bit about like kind of the levels of the Venom. You have your initiates and is it ASIMs and then your sages. But then it said the mavens have never been captured for examination. And this was like really perked my ears up here, and I just kind of highlighted this for the pronunciation guide, but I wrote, oh shit though, like especially about those guys, because it's like I was reading through and then I got to the last one and I was expecting there to be some information, but then it was like, have never been captured, and I was like, oh no, that's bad news. Probably going to be seeing one of those guys pretty soon.
Yeah.
this is like all in the middle of her fight with Kat, and she finds out she's like the same fighting style as Xaden and all the things, and she's like literally down and is like about to die. She's like choking her out. Kat is choking Violet, and she goes, but Rhiannon trained me too. And I was like, freaking epic. And then she like goes at it and does the things and wins the fight, and it was so cool. And I was like, yes, Rhi and best friends and do the thing, and I was fired up.
Oh,
I did love her move there. She just gave her like the back headbutt kind of thing. Love it. Yeah, that was awesome.
So good.
And at chapter 48, another pre-chat blurb.
Pre-chat
Blurb.
There it is.
Get it on with that time.
And this was the public notice. This was the Treaty of Erasia. The power to represent the province of Tyrrendor and the King's Cenarium has hereby been transferred from the House of Ryerson to the House of Llewellyn. And at first, I was thinking, oh, dang, like, is this what happened when, like, Xaden kind of broke up with Kat or whatever, like, that he was talking about in their first year? And then I saw, Lauren, your note in here.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is when the rebellion happened and they like broke apart Erasia as like its own thing, I guess.
Yeah.
Its own.
Which, yeah, that.
What's the word I'm looking for? Province. Thank you.
Yeah, that definitely makes more sense. Like for some reason, when I saw the public notice number, it was 6288.86. For some reason, I was thinking that was their like number system, and it goes like by the like. The first number is the year, because aren't they in like the 600? Aren't they in like the 620s or something right now?
636, I think.
Okay, so it's a little bit
The
later.
roaring 630s.
Yeah,
Is that right?
yeah, it would have been like way before.
Yeah.
Last year or whatever.
I thought the same thing you did, though. I thought it was like year and then maybe the number of the notice of that year.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
It's 633 is when Fourth Wing starts.
Okay, got you.
But later, whenever Violet and Xaden are talking, he says something about like how Llewellyn is governing things really well, and he's better for the battlefield instead of whatever, and mentions this Llewellyn person.
We've not seen them yet, though, right? Okay, because I feel like that was the first time I've seen this name. Was when I read that. I was like, I don't know who that is, but okay.
Yeah, that's why it was in the pronunciation guide, but I felt like I had to include all of it so that you knew what or who Llewellyn was.
I know that like sometimes for the guide, if they're not mentioned in a while, you'll put them on there too, so I wasn't sure if it was like...
Because you're really helpful and great at your job.
Thank you. Love you so much.
Love it too.
Well...
Okay, that's a nice little moment.
After their little, I guess, no, this is just like the beginning of it. They had a little spat. They ended up talking a little argument here in this chapter, which I had some notes on, but they end up being repeated later, so I'll save them. However, I take particular chagrin with the fact that he said engaged and betrothed are different words to him. And I'm like, Xaden, by the dictionary, exact same definition. So you can't just change their significance by being like, but not to me. Grow up.
So the they you're referencing here is Xaden and Violet, just so we're clear.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, who else would be fighting? Those are the only two people to have arguments.
Well, we were just talking about Kat and Violet for a while, but
I also had some notes during their little spat, but it was mostly me yelling at Xaden, so I'm really looking forward to this week's red flag diary.
Me too.
I literally texted Kyle and said, you better have a red flag diary from chapter 48.
I almost did, but then I got to a later chapter. I was like, no.
Yeah.
I'm gonna save it for that.
I gotta hold it
my moment.
Okay, well, I have to put in the iconic line.
Come on.
Of my house,
Let's
my
go.
chair, my woman. Oof.
My man.
Uh-huh. Iconic. And then for like however long later, it took him a minute. And then he says, you are the first and only woman I've ever loved. And I went, aw. And then like literally a paragraph later, he went, I would have told you if you'd asked. That's the problem here, Violet. You don't ask. And I just went, ugh.
You didn't ask me if I loved you.
This whole chapter is back and forth of like the literal cutest things and seriously some of the most romantic things he's ever said, and then some of the most cringeworthy and like frustrating things he said. And it's just like, I want to love him so much.
I know.
I mean, I do, but like, ugh.
I want to love him more.
I want to love him in my heart and my brain.
Yeah.
He would be so great if his mouth never opened.
Exactly.
Yes, just be a hot shadow daddy.
This note was really just me making notes about relationships and stuff, and I thought Lauren would be proud of me. Xaden is guessing here, but doesn't actually want to know, but he's guessing that Violet's previous lovers were infantry, and in Violet's POV, she thinks he's ridiculously on the mark with the infantry guess. And we know from a couple chapter sections ago that she had 2 exes, so were they both infantry, meaning she's always been into older men since these relationships occurred before her first year? Lauren, where you at? That's what I wrote in my notes.
I know, and I read that and I was like, I don't think there's anything else to take from this. I think that's all we get. I mean, Dana's also older than her by a year, so
True, yeah,
she
that's
must
true.
be into it a little bit.
Maybe she just knew her old exes went into the infantry eventually or something.
Maybe that's
After being with the writers, you'd have to think, like, if she went back and saw them in the infantry, she'd be like, what was I thinking? Like, I'm surrounded by
Loser.
hot dragon riders now. Like, what was I thinking?
I mean, she's at the college. She lives there, and you don't see the riders. Like, once they're in the quadrant, they don't, like, really come out of that. So she would be around infantry. We saw some of them whenever they did the war games, and they were trying to steal the map out of her mom's house, and they were, like, the ones on guard. Those kinds of things. So, like, she would see them, I guess, more regularly at least. But
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, continuing this conversation, Violet says, "Wait, are you the king of Tyrandor?" And he's like, "No, I mean, yes, technically, I'm the Duke of Erasia by birth, but Llewellyn's on our side doing just fine governing the province." And I was like, "Okay, King Zaddy." I'm here for it if you're a king. I'm also here for it if you're a duke. I've read Bridgerton. I know what
Hello.
dukes are
Yeah,
like.
there you go.
So I'm here for it.
I love that. And then Xaden's jaw ticks. Cheers,
Yeah,
Dookie. Wait.
Cheers, Dookie.
Somehow
Please leave
I
that in.
don't want to take a sip anymore.
Oh, man.
Take your drinking,
Going
everybody.
up to him, how's
happened?
my little Dookie doing?
That's my little dookie. My little dookie doo.
Sorry, I'm late. I was taking a U.
Oh, my word.
Classic.
Oh, gosh. All right. My next note here, this is when Violet gets to class and they're talking about how every drift will be absorbed by a squad and their leader will replace the squad's current executive officer for unit cohesiveness and efficiency. I'm glad you clarified because at first I thought this is going to be Rhiannon and I didn't know if it was like a higher up person, but then you put your note in here. And
Yes, so for clarification, the executive officer is just below and chosen by the squad leader, which means that Rhiannon remains the squad leader, but Sawyer must have lost his position as executive officer.
Yeah, well, we find that out later.
Yeah.
Later.
He lost it to, what's the guy's name?
Traeger?
Bargain
Tra-
or Bragan or
what?
something.
Bragan?
Wasn't
Bragan.
it him?
Traeger.
Oh, I don't know.
Maybe it was a different guy. Maybe I'm thinking of somebody different.
I do like that they said
Yeah.
absorbed too and like qualified it too. They're like, they're not joining. They're not.
Yeah,
whatever.
that's right.
They are
Yeah.
absorbing. Was a good way to put it.
They're not guests. It's like,
Yeah.
this is your new squad now. Like they're a part of your squad. Yeah.
Squad?
Squad. Squad.
Squad.
I was trying to look up if it was Traeger, but I don't.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Oh, well. Okay.
Trigger warning.
Speaking of writers, if it's a wing leader you're most interested in, Mood Reader Candles has you covered. Our friend Katie at Mood Reader Candles recently dropped a fourth wing-inspired collection of amazing 100% soy wax candles. My personal favorites are the new Wing Leader and Skybound scents, and they've got something incredible for every book lover. We even have a limited edition Between Pages and Friends candle from Mood Reader Candles, and it smells like a fresh bag of peach rings in honor of John's favorite reading snack. It's called Go Off Queen, and it's the perfect scent for spring and summer. Go check out moodreadercandles.com and grab your favorites before they're gone. And of course, we've got you covered with a special promo code. Use our code FRIENDS10 for 10% off all regularly priced items, excluding bundles. So head over to moodreadercandles.com to get yours today.
Moving into chapter 49. This is my note here, as in Violet's point of view as she walks up to Kat and she's like reassuring herself. And she says, Xaden loves me. He chose me. And my thought here was, yeah, plus he just ponderosa'd you on his throne. I think you guys are solid.
Ponderosa.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Yeah.
It's the Mexican
You know what a
restaurant, right?
Ponderosa? It's a buffet style restaurant.
She's never been, I guess.
My God. All right. The line right after that was the one I highlighted where she said, "And I will be the most powerful writer of my
yeah.
generation." And I was like, yeah,
Yeah,
you
you
will,
will.
girl. Self-affirmations.
Yes.
And then shortly after that, Violet says to Kat, "Did you know that Tyrrendor hasn't had a crown in more than 600 years? Turns out they melted them all down to forge the unification crown. So good luck with that." She's like clapping back at her. And I loved this. And I feel like this is what she like kind of needs to go against Kat. Like her smarts, everything she's learned as a scribe. I feel like she does that, she'll kind of tear this broad up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's true, though, because Kat fights with emotions, technically. I
Yeah.
mean, she's always trying to heighten people's emotions, so it makes sense
Classic
that
Kat.
using her
Logic and
Logic and
book
smarts. I
smarts.
feel like that would like tick that kind of person off. Because it's like
Yeah.
you can't argue with that person. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I know, Kyle. I mean, what?
Yeah.
Wait, who's who in that situation?
You're the logic guy.
Okay,
I'm
good.
the emotional one.
Phew.
Okay.
Your cat. Wait.
Meow.
And then in one of her most iconic lines, Violet says to Kat, "That trick you mentioned, with the fingers, a slow smile spreads across my face. Thanks."
Slow clap.
Diabolical.
In this moment. Amazing.
So good.
10 out of 10.
But again, it was like everyone else's reactions that totally made this scene for me. It says Kat's eyes bulge. Imogen laughs so hard she snorts. Ree claps a few times and says, "Damn, just damn." And Riddick throws his arm around Violet and says, "I fucking love you." And then immediately, also classic Riddick, he follows it up by asking who's hungry because, and I quote, "I woke up somewhere I hadn't exactly planned on and missed breakfast." So obsessed with their whole friend group. It's so good.
Well, and then Violet says, "I am not going to breakfast. I'm going to the library." And Sawyer's immediately, "The library? Then me too," following quickly after. It's like, oh, Sawyer. It's like a little puppy dog. But on the way to the library, they're talking about Kat. And she's like, "No, it's fine. I got it handled." And Sawyer says, "You sure? Say the word and we'll bury a body." And I was like, oh, what good friends.
Yeah.
Iron Squad.
I know.
And then Sawyer, obviously, he's a little nervous about heading to the library. He signs good morning to Violet and says, "Is that right?" If I says, "You got it," he takes off in Jasinia's direction. I'm so on board for this. Like, do you think, Sawyer? Get your girl. Like,
Yeah,
let's
so
go,
cute.
buddy.
Break a
I
leg.
love it. Don't die.
So while they're in the library and Sawyer's off talking to Jasinia or whatever, Violet's kind of taking in her surroundings and it's kind of describing what the library is and stuff. And she was talking about how the second floor really doesn't have any books to it. And she had said somewhere that while stone doesn't burn, books do. And so they had lost a lot of that stuff. And so she says, "I will make it my personal mission to see that the second floor looks the same as the first within the next decade." And I was like, I love this goal,
Pretty
first
cool.
of all,
Yeah.
just for Violet. But also, I just love this idea of buying new books. And I think that we should all go out and buy a new book to show our support for Violet
Yeah.
trying to fill the library.
Great idea.
I think
You know
that's
what? Hell yeah.
I'm on board.
Hell yeah, brother.
everyone for Violet. Go buy yourself a book this week. That's what I'm here for.
Why not?
We got to fill those libraries,
Yeah.
your personal ones at your home.
The next note, speaking of books, they're translating. By they, I mean Liam, I believe, is talking with Violet about the book that she's been trying to translate.
Dane?
Dane.
Dane. Sorry,
Liam
not
is
Liam. Liam's
R.I.P.
dead. Liam's dead and nothing's changing that.
Oh my God.
Dane.
Stop, Kyle.
Dane was
mean.
translating the book with Violet.
That was great.
To be fair, Liam has shown up a few times randomly to be like, "Oh, are you Liam? Oh, am I seeing Liam?"
He's a
So he's
ghost.
still freaking hanging around. Guess he wasn't commended to Mallet because he's still here. Dane and
Dude.
Violet translating.
People don't hate you in this series yet, Kyle. Don't give them reasons to. Gosh.
Oh man, they were translating the journal, Warwick's journal, and Dane says, "Oh, this isn't the word for rain." And I only highlighted it because I was like, "Oh, it's flame, isn't it? Like the book, like the title of the book that we're reading." My only defense is that I read on Kindle and I literally never see the title except for these episodes where we're like, we're talking about Iron Flame.
Yeah.
But that moment was where it registered like, oh, it's Flame.
Yep. Yeah, Kyle came into the bedroom and was like, it's Iron Flame, isn't it? And I was like, yes! And I was like, I know everyone's going to be freaking out that Kyle finally didn't call something like right away. When he went on this whole rant last episode about the iron and the blood and what the iron means and just totally ignored the word rain 100%. And I was like, felt so validated. But
Yes.
that's okay. It's okay to get some... You got it right on time. It's totally fine.
I mean,
You're doing great. Good job.
You caught
Kyle.
up eventually.
Yeah. You got it. So proud.
well, we
of you.
learned that
did.
there's like a lot more about that sentence that was not translated correctly. So
You still never knew, John, until just now, that it's Iron Flame?
Yeah.
yeah, so same thing. I do feel like reading it now, though, or like thinking about it more, where it's like, oh, that's not the word for rain; it's the word for flame. Oh, that's whatever. It's blah blah. It's gonna be like, okay, so this could have been avoided from the beginning if like you just had someone else look at the book. You wouldn't have wasted all this effort and time.
But she didn't trust Dane at the beginning.
Well, maybe she should try trusting people.
Okay.
Should she, though?
I mean, great advice.
When we were having that conversation, though, about the title of the book or whatever, he was like, I mean, in my defense, fourth wing didn't really mean anything. It was just that she's in the fourth wing. And so how am I supposed to know that Iron Flame is some big secret to the riddle or whatever?
Yeah.
And I was like, I get that, especially because they're the Iron Squad and aren't they part of Flame section?
I thought it had to do with that.
So like
honestly.
it could have been something like that. But
it's whatever.
I don't know. This is still part of her conversation with Dane. She said she's not the same as when she started at Basgiath. That first year hardened her in some ways. And then she's like, oh, yeah, I guess that means it changed you too. And he said, living only by the Codex will do that to you. And she says, part of me wonders if that's why they push it so hard on us. They transform us into their perfect weapons to teach us to critically think about everything except the Codex and the orders that they give us. And so this kind of just goes back to the very first thing I said in the podcast about this is some of their like manipulation, them setting the rules, and like Violet kind of questioning like Basgiath as a whole, as a concept, you know, not just maybe the rules of Navarre, but also just even the college on what they say.
Yeah.
Isn't necessarily the right thing, you know. It's just crazy to see how far the manipulation goes, and then really how many have died for that. Honestly, I'm kind of onto a big theory with this concept of like this college and stuff, but I'm not ready to share my big theory. So I'm just gonna hold on to it. But
Okay.
something's going on up here.
Can you tell me your theory, or is it just not fully formed yet?
Oh yeah, I could
wanna
tell you
know.
my theory just off
Oh, okay.
podcast.
Great. I can't wait.
Because this is a spoiler-free podcast, so
Yes.
I'm just gonna hold it all in.
I feel like with you saying that too about how the college operates, there's like a big, I forget what it's called, like a faulty thinking process called appeal to tradition. So maybe that is also where the college lies, where it's like, this is how we've always done things, so we don't question it. And it's just like, this is just how it works. And everybody who comes in is like, well, that's how it works. And it's been working, so why would we do it differently?
Yeah, 100%.
You see that a lot in a lot of older businesses and societies. They just refuse to change because they never have.
Well, and that's literally what this whole book is that they were like, cool, we're just going to change the history and then everyone will believe it. And then everyone's like, okay, yeah, that's just what it was. You know?
Yeah.
So it would make sense that the college is doing that more than just lying to them about this history, about the venom and all of that stuff. So I don't know. I just feel like there's something more going on.
Nah.
Anyways, speaking of earlier when Violet wasn't asking Xaden any questions, I do appreciate her asking Dane questions about like, how many times did you steal my memory? Was it every time you touched my face? And they just had this whole conversation that was really open and honest. So that was good for them. We're healing.
Yeah, it did take her a while to get to that point to like ask him that and be ready for that information though from Dane. So
For sure. 100%.
It is weird that he straight up admitted to being like, no, that's just how I always touched you. Because that's what she said too. Like, oh, he's always, touched me that way on my face or whatever. And I don't know about you guys, but to befriend a face toucher is weird to me. Like,
it's a choice.
But it is interesting if there's a lot of theories about Dane, if his signet, is it just when he touches faces? Is as it's growing? Is it anywhere that he touches someone? And so maybe it is just that it manifested the first time when he was touching someone's face because he's a weird face toucher. And so maybe he just assumed that's what it always was.
or that's where it's the strongest.
Right.
So
Well, yeah, I mean, if Felix tells Violet that she can control her powers in like a different ways instead of it just,
Yeah.
manifesting however she's been doing it, I imagine that applies to everybody with their signet.
Right.
Well, and we've seen Rhiannon's grow. Like, she was barely able to bring something to her,
Yeah.
and then she was able to take that dagger through a wall.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, so, like,
Yeah.
it's obviously grows, and that's just within her first year. So, Dane is nearing the end of his second year, so you would think it's
It is
a
another
lot stronger.
instance of, like, to see that first manifestation, because it's always like, oh, it's based on need. So, like, what was he doing that he needed to hold someone's face and gain their memories? And, like, that's how
Recent
it manifested. Yeah, recent
Yeah.
memories. So it would be interesting to find out where that came from. Or, yeah, like how he learned how to do that in the first place, unless his dragon, for some reason, was like, no, you have to grab their face.
Yeah, but it doesn't sound like the dragons are very helpful, because
Yeah.
she even asks Andarna, like, do
Yeah.
I have a
Yeah.
second signet? And Andarna's like, I don't know. That's on you, girl. Figure it out.
I'm busy eating sheep.
Exactly. I got other things to do. Also, I even just saying recent memories with Dane, like how far back is his signet grow that he could even see further back in memories and just kind of
Yeah.
like pick and choose what he wants to see. So I don't know. I'd love to know more though. Finishing this conversation with Dane and Violet, he says, "Are you in love with him?" Because Garrick and I heard the end of what he said in the interrogation chamber, and trust me, I might be in love with him after that declaration. But are you really and truly? And she says, yes, that's never going to change. And he immediately says, then I'll trust him as much as you do. And I really appreciated this from him. This is like the best friend that
Yeah.
we needed to see from the beginning. This is him trying to be an
Yes.
actual good person. So this is me asking as a collective, how are we feeling about Dane? Are we coming around? Do we feel like he's full on redemption arc? Are we still untrustworthy about Dane? Where are we at with Dane right now?
Coming around, I guess, for sure. It sort of makes you rethink everything that he did early on whenever you're like, oh, he was just a puppet.
Yeah.
Yeah, he even said he trusted his dad.
Yeah, it doesn't really excuse the actions, but
Right.
it does soften them.
I guess I'm coming around a little bit. This is definitely better ground for him. I think we'll see more once we start getting into some battles and stuff, and if Basgiath kind of comes around again, how he reacts to all that.
Yeah.
Sure.
And in this little conversation, Dane's jaw flexes. Cheers, y'all.
Thanks for not calling us Dookie this time.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Cheers, you little poops.
I almost spit my drink out.
And chapter 50, we're starting with the pre-chat blurb.
Reach up.
There it is.
Blurb, 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 blurb. It always comes a little bit later.
This one was just hilarious to me. This was the guide to the writer's quadrant, and it says, no writer alive truly believes they've reached the limitations of their power. The dead ones may feel differently. And I just wrote, savage, Major Ofrenda.
No, the ofrenda.
The Ofrenda.
Didn't put their pictures. Okay. There's a lot of funny Andarna lines from this one, and then some like Taryn reactions to whatever Andarna is doing. But I just really loved this one from Taryn himself, where he says, "I chose you, and dragons make no mistakes." And Violet says, "What's it like going through life so self-assured?" And he's like, "It's ... life." I was like, yes, Taryn. So accurate. It's just what it is. I love him.
And then Garrick tells Violet about what happened in Pavis, and his jaw works. So here's a cheers of condolences.
Work that jaw, Garrick.
You know, gotta work.
It's a really sad moment, you guys.
Oh, sorry.
Read the room.
I got distracted by his jaw muscles.
Hello, Garrick. Speaking of distractions, in chapter 51, Violet is making small talk about the weather and says, it's already snowing up the pass. I bet we get 7 inches tonight. And Zayden says, maybe more if you're good. The giggle. All caps giggle. Full-blown giggle that escaped me at this line. I was in the kitchen, like, listening to the audiobook doing dishes, and I literally just went,
It's so good.
I also had a comment here that just says he wishes.
You don't believe
I thought you were
him?
Team Zayden.
That's a different team, Zayden, all right?
Oh. Is it though?
A mental
But
team.
like, how
game?
much of a team is
Is it, Gavin?
like how much?
On a scale of 1 to 7, how much do you like Zayden?
On a scale of like 7, 8, are you Team Zayden on a 9?
That Schmidt gif. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Are you serious?
Tell
Are
me
you
when.
serious? Okay, this is ridiculous.
Okay, let me
I'm starting
restart.
over.
So good.
I actually recently, I had forgotten that this line was in this book, but recently my friend Mallory was reading this for the first time. Shout out to Mallory. Hello.
Hi, Mallory.
Mallory!
I got a text from her completely out of the blue, no context, that just said 7 inches in all caps.
2 dragons.
Yeah. She squawked.
She's walked 7 inches.
Anyway, that was cracking me up. But then back to the solemn cheers, they start talking about the venom, and Zayden flexes his jaw. Pour one out, I guess.
How dare he?
R.I.P. Zayden's kind of going off about all the horrible things that he saw and what's going on and kind of giving Violet like a rundown of the war. And he says, we don't have any idea where they're coming from. We have no idea how many of them are assembling in Zulia and where the F all these wyverns are hatching from. And I didn't think wyvern hatched. I thought they were created by a venom. Using, like, they channeled from the earth and created the wyvern, and it just appeared out of the channeled magic. Because when you kill a venom, all the wyvern they created also die. That's what we learn at Ressin, right? So are they hatching?
Yes.
Maybe they just make them
Out
in
of
an
a-
egg. Little mud pie egg.
And then they have to wait for them?
Yeah.
Maybe.
I thought, like, at Ressin, the venom showed up, and they were like, cool, now there's dragons, so let me create some wyvern. And they're just like...
Oh.
No, I think they just flew in. I will admit, crawling out of the earth is a much cooler visual than them just flying in. But I think
Ew.
they do just fly in, and they prepare them earlier.
I guess I always assumed they, like, created them somewhere, and it was some kind of process. They were building up an army of some kind.
The odds of however many venom they killed at Ressin just happened to also create those wyvern that were there. Like, if they were smart, somebody was back at the venom home, creating all these wyvern to hatch.
Yep. Setting them out on
Home
the
on the
windowsill.
range.
This one's almost ready. Wafting.
Been baking this one all day.
And whenever they're ready, they could, like, send them off to war or whatever, and then they can stay safe at their home and not get killed, so then all the wyvern don't die.
I thought they just created wyvern and had them nearby. And then maybe among them, they could be like, whoa, that guy can make and control like 4 of them. I can only do 3, and I got to get my numbers up, sort of thing.
I'm low on quota.
Yeah.
If I don't make it by the 3rd quarter, I'm fired.
Well, since the wyvern are tied to the venom's magic, I guess I figured they do have to stay close in proximity because the venom is, like, actively controlling the wyvern. And if they die and that cuts off the magic that was, like, being channeled to the wyvern, I guess, then the wyvern immediately die. I figured it was like a closer connection. Like, they had to be kind of, maybe not within a certain range, but, like, they had to be actively controlling all of them at the same time, and
Yeah.
that takes a certain amount of power or something.
So
But yeah,
it's
I
kinda
don't
like
know.
opposite of channeling, like, your dragon. Because, like, if the dragon dies, the
Oh,
human
yeah.
does.
Yeah, pretty
But in this
much.
case, if the
Yeah.
venom dies, the wyvern does. But I
Yes.
still I'm confused at the whole concept of them hatching, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, who said that they were hatching? Because some people might still believe that that's what they do.
Oh,
Yeah, that's true. Zayden did, but
Oh, well, never mind then.
I don't know.
Yeah. I just think that if there was only a few venom making them, that just makes them weaker. Because then you kill, like, one of those guys and the 3rd of their wyvern army's gone would be a huge... Like, they'd want to keep those guys really well protected if that was the case.
yeah.
I mean, I guess it makes sense if you're going to create a wyvern that it has to stay close to you because it's your magic. Like, I'm with you on that, Connor. I guess I just thought it happened. To me, the battle at Russin, they, like, were created in that moment. But maybe I just made it cooler in my head than what it actually is.
Yeah, my next note here, they're continuing to talk. There was no plan except to hold the line, but the line isn't holding. Violet's like, well, we weren't ready. And as they're like talking through this, I was thinking that I feel like we don't really have a true bad guy yet, like we haven't for a while. Yes, we've had the Venom and the Wyverns, and then we've had like an enemy for drama's sake, like in relationships, like, like Kat or like whoever. But I'm referencing here like a singular bad guy, kind of like the Sage, only maybe one of the generals or whatever. And again, I'll echo what I said earlier. I feel like we might see, I don't know, being that we got one more chapter section left in this book.
Yep.
That's crazy. I don't know if we'll see like one of their generals in this book. It's a good possibility we will see that same Sage that we saw at Resson. I'm thinking they might have to go a little bit deeper into Venom territory to see a general, especially if none of them have been captured. But yeah, I'm just like, I'm ready kind of for like the next, I'll get there in like thoughts and theories and
The
stuff.
next boss.
Yeah.
Yeah, the next level. Yeah, because even when she first joined, it was always the Griffins were like the main bad guy. And then for a while, when we found out the Griffins were okay, it was almost like Navarre itself and maybe like Melgrin or her mom.
Yeah.
But I agree that it's not been like, this is the clear person that we need to take down in order to win the battle or whatever it is. Yeah.
And like Varys was kind of like, you could call him as a bad guy, but he was still like on their side technically.
And low on the totem pole.
Yeah. So, I mean.
Yeah.
But this is only the second book out of 5. So.
True. And it's almost been more of like a mission-based book. Like they had to, like first they had to get the luminary, and then once they got the luminary, they had to find the journals and then translate the journals and figure out how to get the wards back up. Like it's all been kind of little missions.
It's a side quest book.
A side quest, yes.
And then my next note here is that when Violet figures out that the 6 most powerful were referring to dragons rather than riders, I was like, oh crap, like, does that mean that they'd have to get Coda here? Does it have to be like literally the 6 most, or just like they can just pick 6 really powerful ones?
I mean, when they did it with the people, it was still just the 6 most in residence.
Oh,
like
yeah.
6 most powerful
that's true. You're right.
in residence.
Yeah, that
so
makes
maybe
sense.
it's the same thing with the dragons.
Yeah.
Because Coda's
I hope
already,
so.
he's within the wards somewhere else.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a good point. Good point. All right, moving on to chapter 52. This is when Sawyer is sitting with Jesinia on a blanket near the fire, an intense look of concentration on his face as he signs. Shit, he might have just told her that he thinks her turtle is blue, but I'm not getting in the middle of that. This is from Violet's perspective. Just living for this. This was super cute.
I just love that she puts up with it too, and she's just here for it too.
Yeah.
I really appreciated this moment from Violet and honestly Ree and the rest of the Iron Squad, where Violet figures out how to put up the wards, but understands that the Griffins and the Griffin Riders will not be able to channel because it's the same wards that happen in Navarre, and that's how it is for them. So I appreciate that they like give them a choice or even just a heads up, like you could leave or just know this is going to happen.
Yeah.
I just love that she's not trying to be Navarre itself. Like every time she has given people the option, she has laid it all out. Like here are the facts and you get a choice in what happens for yourself. Like they're still going to make the best choice for the area, the province or whatever, but they can still like have their own free will to like decide things. So I just really appreciated about her, and just even Ree and the rest of the Iron Squad going with that.
Iron Squad?
Squad. I want an Iron Squad patch.
Okay.
Okay. I don't know where I'm going to put it.
I'll tell where you can put it.
On your arm. It would look great.
On your jacket. On your Between Pages and Friends jacket that I'm supposed to make you.
Yes, I really want one.
Our Lettermans? With the different
Yeah, I mean,
patches
sure.
on them?
No, I just want like a jacket I can wear all the time. How I always wear my school one, but I can't wear it because it has the logo. And I can't wear it in content. I'm not supposed to show the school logo. So instead I want a Between Pages and Friends one. But by the time Connor makes it, it'll be summer. So
True.
it'll be fine.
Then you won't need a jacket.
Yeah. That's a next fall. That's a fall Connor and Lauren problem.
Exactly. And then we get another sage dream here, and I just highlighted the part where it says, he whispers, coming so close I can smell a hint of something sweet on his breath. And I think I assumed this was like a zombie situation where Venom didn't need to eat because they just channeled power to survive because they're like immortal apparently. So like, did he pregame with like a little daiquiri before this dream scenario? Why is Violet dreaming about sweet venom breath? Just... That was really my main
I mean,
thought
they
here.
still might not have to eat, but he could brush his teeth.
He could. It would be the smart thing to do.
Gingivitis is the silent killer.
Our bodies are decaying.
Lose your soul, but not your teeth with this. It's funny. But in this dream, the sage also says, the one who watched thinks you'll never yield, that we should kill you before you grow into your full abilities. And they're talking about the battle at Resin. I mean, obviously this is a dream, so hopefully this is just Violet making it all up in her head. But like what Jon said in the the pre-episode blurb, that's Jon's chapter recaps. The pre-episode blurb was that it's seeming to get like really real, and the sage like even physically touched Violet, or like she felt and smelled, and it was like a lot more real. But to think that potentially at Resin there were other Venom out there just watching the whole time and like taking notes on them, or who knows what else, and basically they let them fly away because they could have just shown up and they would have all lost and died. Everything would have been over book one. So if that's the truth, that's extremely terrifying. Like,
Question for Kyle. He references the one who watched. Any thoughts on this being possibly Melgren? Ooh. Kind of them playing it off as another Venom, but it's actually Melgren.
Yes, I see where you're coming from. I feel like maybe. I feel like that, and the fact that we're getting so much info on, like, here's how the specific ranks of Venom look. We should all be paying attention to any red lines around anyone's eyes and stuff. So it'd be interesting to see, like, next time, if we see Melgren, if it gives a description of him being like, oh, his eyes are bloodshot, he must be tired. Because I'd be like, wow, is it really?
Part of me wondered if it was Dane's dad, because he's the one who kind of set up that whole scenario, and there was like the weird Navarian thing that tracked all the Venom there.
Like
kind of
the
seemed to orchestrate, all of that. So,
and he's like not at Basgiath anymore.
That's true.
Like Nourish took his place, and he got sent. It said where, but wherever he got sent.
Yep.
Interesting. Okay, cool.
Yep.
Cool. Okay. So Violet wakes up from her creepy sage dream, and she asks Tarn if he can see her dreams, and he basically says he has better things to do. But then he also says, stop allowing yourself to be tortured like a hatchling and wake yourself up like an adult. And she, in her POV, wants to tell him that human dreams don't work like that. But this just made me think, like, this combined with the dreamless sleep would imply that dragons do have dreams. This just had never occurred to me before, and now I need to know what dragons dream about. And it also reminded me of the card from Cards Against Fourth Wing that just said snoring dragon.
Yes.
How have we gone this long since our trip and not brought any of that up? Because Cards Against Fourth Wing was an experience.
It was an experience, yes.
They dream about chasing sheep.
They count sheep.
And tacos.
How many they eat. Dragons do love tacos. That's a good book.
Yeah, it is.
So they are out at the flight field. I think they're getting like aren't they like about to like play a game or do some sort of like they're going to find all the runes. The competition thing to try to get a free weekend pass or whatever it is. And Darna really wants to come, and Taryn's like, no, but she really wants to come. Riddick kind of notices this between them and Violet, and Riddick says, trouble in Double Dragon Land. And I was like, Double Dragon Land? That sounds so fun. Like, I want to go.
I saw your note, and I've had the Dragon Tales theme song stuck in my head since then. Because it's like, let's all go to Dragon Land.
Yes.
Pretty close after that, I think Xaden shows up, and Violet is just talking to him, and she goes, oh, bad news? And Xaden says, no, just news that's best shared when there's time to discuss. And for some reason, at 1 a.m., my note was, oh my God, he's pregnant.
Oh, perfect. This is shortly after they've landed, and like, you know, I think it's Garrick and Imogen, I think, are like kind of coming off of their dragons or whatever. This is Garrick passing Violet and Xaden after they arrive. He tells Violet to ask Xaden about the venom he killed outside of Dreythus. And Xaden gives him a look and says, "Thanks, asshole." And he says, "Just doing my part to help your communication skills thrive in a stable relationship."
He walks backwards and kind of shrugs at him.
What a friend.
This is awesome. But honestly, like they're truly trying to work on this. So I mean, come on, man.
Well, and I think it's cute that Xaden has talked to Garrick about it.
Yeah.
That has a friend that he's talking to about things. Just love that.
Cute.
Probably one of those situations, if he said that they had communication issues, I bet his reaction was probably like, yeah, that makes sense for you.
You? Communication issues?
No way.
I'm shocked. They keep fighting, and they turn into one of their mind-to-mind fight conversations, and the whole Iron Squad is just watching this happen. And Kat finally says, "Are you two fighting silently?" And Sloane just says, "They do that." And I was like, thank you that somebody's weirdly calling it out, and that Sloane has even noticed, which I don't even know that she's been around on page when this has happened for us to know, or if it's just common knowledge that the two of them weirdly stare at each other.
Or Liam wrote about it in his letters.
Oh, yeah, that could be.
Just wrote about how his friend silently fights his girlfriend.
They just stare at each other.
Little sis, big news. My friend fought his girlfriend silently.
Big news.
Lil sis, big news. I love that.
All right, chapter 53. You guys, this is where in my Kindle app, my original first read notes start. I read the end of Iron Flame for the first time on an airplane, so I didn't have internet, and I was trying to take notes so I would remember to talk to Lauren about stuff later. So this was like...
I forgot. I have notes. I haven't looked at any of the StoryGraph ones for this book like we did.
I haven't either. This was way before podcast, but Lauren and I were just buddy reading, and so I was taking notes in my Kindle app for the very first time, and they saved from all the ones I took on the airplane when I finished the book. So I have some random ones I'll like sprinkle in here. This one was really just... A lot of them are me like either shouting in all caps or just spiraling into a bunch of different little mini theories as I was reading. So that was kind of what this was. But then Jon also kind of responded to it. So it was the part in chapter 53 where Violet notes that Andarna's scales were reflecting the snow in an almost silvery sheen. And this was like after a few different mentions of Andarna's scales, like they're black, but they kind of have this purpley hue today or whatever. And so because this was also the chapter with the epigraph about siphoning, and she's with Andarna right now, I was like, OMG, is Andarna going to be able to siphon or give Vi that signet, since she seems to be reflecting whatever's around her or like what she needs in the moment? Or what if Andarna can siphon to compensate for the physical weaknesses that she has with like her wings, because nature likes all things in balance? Like I was trying to connect all these things from earlier in the book and this epigraph, and that just sent me into a whole tailspin. So that's what most of my first read notes are like.
But then that made me have an idea, because you mentioned the whole reflecting thing, and I was like, ooh, maybe Vi would get like some kind of camo ability or something. Like that would be dope, like Predator.
I like that. Like Predator.
Nice.
And my next note here was, when did Vizia get here again? Who is she? I know she was there with them when the Flyers crossed the cliffs and all that, but like before that, where did she come from?
That's so valid.
It is valid. I had the same question. So I went back and I retrieved the tea. So here it is. Vizia was not introduced in book 1, but she entered the quadrant at the same time as Violet. But she pissed off a dragon during her first threshing and almost didn't survive. So we didn't really hear anything about her. She is a repeat. So like she was a first year with Violet, but then technically now she would be.
So she's like Sawyer.
But she's still a first year. She's in the same.
She would be in her as like Sloane and Arik.
Got it.
Yes. Yeah. So she's like a repeat first year now. So we didn't really see her at all in book 1 because Violet did bond and went on to have all of her little adventures. So after bonding this year, Vizia was assigned to Violet's squad and then came with everyone to Eratia. So that's why she's like now kind of suddenly showing up. She wasn't introduced until like chapter 8 of this book.
Yeah.
Well, especially because Violet wasn't paying attention to any of the first years. Because she thought they were all going to die or whatever. She didn't want to know anyone's names.
So far, so accurate.
Yeah. My next note here, Taryn to Violet. This is when they're...
Choo-choo. It says train.
I know.
It says train, not Taryn. So.
All of my Taryn, every time I type Taryn, it autocorrects to train in our notes. So that's why Lauren has choo-choo here. So they're in the cave and they're looking for the next rune. And Violet's talking to Taryn, and Taryn says there's an energy signature in the cave. That's all I can tell. And at first I was like, oh man, he just senses an energy signature. Like it's not going to be a rune. It's going to, but then we find out that Solus showed up too. And I was thinking here, like, how did Taryn not sense him? Like, I feel like Solus wouldn't be able to block out Taryn, but I don't know. I just thought that was kind of interesting. Maybe it was a distance thing, but like him and Violet can like still talk like well. So
or even Andarna, she's in the...
Oh my God, yeah, I didn't even think of that. Holy crap. Because he couldn't have been very far, and if he flew in, Taryn probably wouldn't have been able to see him because he was like on another mountain peak, like a few minutes away. Yeah, still though.
But it sounds like he was clearly hunting Violet.
For sure.
So like he had to have been around for a while to even figure out where they were, or know that she would be alone in this moment and all the things.
Like, did he go with them and he's just been hanging out in the valley the whole time? Or like, that would be my assumption. Or unless he was just been like hiding out in the mountains. If that's the case, then how did he even know like where they were? Yeah. I feel like he probably came with them.
Okay, so remember whenever she was being tortured by Varish, didn't Taryn say like he had hunted Solus into some like caves?
Oh, shoot.
Yeah, he
lost him or whatever.
Caves. Yeah.
So and then Violet, this is all like coming to me right now. And then Violet even said like, it looks like these caves go so much further in all these places. So maybe he's like weirdly been in this cave system.
Interesting.
Since then, even in like hiding or something.
Crazy that he hunted him like so far away too.
Or he's traveled that much farther since.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah.
Maybe since Taryn could sense the like magic or power of the runes, maybe that's what Solus was doing. Because he was maybe hunting or like...
Or running away in mourning of his rider, and then smelled the one that killed his rider and was like, oh, good, I could kill her.
Yeah.
Interesting. All right, cool.
Well, I had a note on Vizia saying, I'm not losing this pass. It will give me time to fly home and convince my cousins to leave the border if my aunt and uncle won't. It's the only thing to do. And I like anyone who talks about getting any sort of effort to their family was like, well, I hope you put it in a letter, because basically before I could finish that thought while reading, like 2 sentences later, the angle, the impact, gods, she's dead. And I was like, oh, yeah, I was about to say that was fast though, but yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And then my additional note was, well, I guess Vizia doesn't really matter anymore, does she?
Yeah, guess we're done.
Who cares?
Glad we clarified.
See ya.
Dang.
See
Try
ya
again
never.
next year. Ooh.
You guys are heartless. My word. Chapter 54, this is like them fighting with Solus, and I loved this moment with Andarna and how she like covered them all with her wings and stuff, and she's like, don't breathe, and she like just totally kept everyone safe, and it was just epic. It was a really cool moment for her. We just haven't seen her like really involved in much, especially in this book. She's been asleep, so I'm just excited for it.
Yes, which leads right into this other moment that was just so badass. This was another one where like the writing is phenomenal, and then listening to the audio at the same time, the narration's so intense that I was just really like super into this moment. But Violet shoves the prongs of the conduit into the soft joint between Solus's scales as Andarna sinks her teeth between his neck and shoulder, distracting him. And then in italics it says, and then I wheeled. I was like, this is so crazy.
Cool. Freaking epic. But during all of this, Sloane is like freaking the F out. It sounds like at one point she starts to drain Kat, and Kat's like freaking out. And then they get out and she's trying to help Violet, and then does the same to Violet and ends up saying like, I drained you. She holds up trembling hands. Are my eyes red? She's like freaking out, thinking she literally just turned venom. Taryn says she is as Naolan was. Violet says, you're a siphon. So Sloane is the siphon. And whatever the heck that power is.
Whoa. What do you mean, whatever the heck that is? Don't we already know?
I mean, I get it, but
okay. I was like,
this power is just confusing to me because it is so similar to I guess, like what a venin is, because they're like, she's literally like taking the power out of something, but she's not turning venin. So it's just weird how that makes sense, and how everyone's just seemingly okay with a siphon, since Naolan was obviously around for a while. Nobody killed him outright for that power.
I think it's the same thing as like siphoning. As long as they're not taking from the earth. Same thing as like Dane can read people's thoughts, but as long as he has to, touch them to do it, and there's some sort of very fine line between what they allow and what they do not, I suppose. But
did it say? I know it said in the pre-chat blurb a little bit about that siphon, but do they like absorb or just take away?
I think it's. I thought it was more like borrowing the power.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at. Do they like take it within themselves for like a brief time and they're able to use it?
Oh, sort of like rogue.
Kind of.
The pre-chap says the art of imbuing comes naturally to only a handful of signets and automatically to one, the siphon. So it is convenient that they need to imbue the stone.
Yeah.
Since apparently that's going to be automatic to her.
It's sort of like giving and taking is easier to her.
Yeah.
It's almost like she's the channel between whatever power and then putting it into the other thing or whatever.
Oh. I wonder if that's the one. Like they need the one is like a siphon.
The 6. Like the 6 and the 1 combined or whatever. Like she combines them.
Like the 6 dragons breathe fire into her or something, but she's able to siphon it, so she just takes it and puts it right into the stone. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
Ideas.
It's a solid option. Solid plan B. If it doesn't work, Sloan, we're going to breathe fire
Sloan.
on you.
We're gonna torch you with some fire.
And if that doesn't work, we're so sorry.
It does make me wonder, though, always going back to what did she feel like she needed in that moment to get that power? Did she feel like she was going to channel like from the earth, but instead that became her signet or something? Or
it might have just
what did
been
she feel like she needed from someone else? Like, was she just jealous of someone else's power, so she felt like she needed to take it or something? Or
I didn't see it as like a jealousy thing, but more of like a, what can I possibly do in this situation? And she was just like looking for anything that she could do. And that just so happened to manifest in being like, there's power all around you. Here you go.
Yeah. Especially because she hasn't been good on the sparring mat. I mean, she's finally accepting help, but it's like nothing really comes naturally to her.
Yeah.
So that's interesting with the epigraph talking about how like this only comes automatically to one signet. Like she wanted something that was, she needed something that would come naturally to her, I guess.
I feel like a signet like that, being a writer, I feel like it can't be that great to have, especially if you need to touch somebody for it to work.
That's how I feel about Danes.
Yeah, because like you're always gonna be on a dragon for the most part, and if you need to use your signet, then you need to literally get within hand's reach of somebody in order to use it. Obviously, it's a more defensive signet than an offensive signet, but.
Could she siphon directly from her dragon and just sort of wield raw power in the same way Violet does?
Isn't that what using your signet is anyway?
Well, that's what I mean, though. But just like draining it out faster and pushing it out of herself. Because they say like Violet's raw power, she could just shape it differently.
That's what I'm hoping, is that she can absorb and then use it in some way, use it outwardly in some way, instead of just in an instance like, I'm going to take all your power away, and then you can't use your power, but that's all I can do. I can just take it away. I can't do anything else with it.
Yeah.
Maybe that's part of what she'll have to learn to do or whatever. But
it'd be interesting to see if she could siphon power from a venin. They're like trying to drain power from the earth. She could just stand on the earth with them, a hand on them, and just create a cycle of power through them both.
Yep.
Maybe she's the cure. Maybe she can like suck out the evilness.
Heyo.
Okay, Kyle.
Oh my God.
Yowza.
All right.
Can she now?
That was a really good conversation until you made that.
Your reputation precedes
Sloan is
you.
now at the top of Kyle's list.
The venom are like, yeah, that's the one.
Oh my God.
Did you hear about this new Sloan girl? Forget the lightning girl. Oh
man.
Anyway.
Well,
family-friendly podcast.
Yeah.
We have emoji erotica, the throne room scene.
It's just a mild content warning.
You know.
It's fine.
Up to chapter 55, we come up on a big old fight. And I have the Red Flag Diary ready to go. So glad you guys liked it last time.
Between Violet and Xaden.
Yes, of course. Again, who
Not
else?
like a fight.
Who else? Been over some things that Xaden is
Here we
doing
go.
before. His gamification of honesty is a way for him to control the flow of information in the relationship while also being able to act as if Violet is the one hindering it. An example I wrote was just, I said all you needed to do was ask, so really it's your fault for not asking, right? And then his projection of his own thoughts and feelings onto Violet while disregarding her own as textbook gaslighting. It was gaslighting light before, but it's textbook gaslighting now, and you gotta hate it. But worst of all, the dagger in the armoire really got to me, and here's why. The actual writing. Violet uses an analogy for battle axes in an armoire. Xaden takes her analogy and improperly applies it to a real-life scenario in order to discredit her argument. Xaden deflects her concerns about his use of her analogy and asks her to just list the items in their shared armoire, which Violet says she can do because she opens it daily. He then asks about the blanket his mother gave him in order to distract her for a moment from the topic, giving him a chance to whip a dagger out and brandish it in front of her. The dagger is an implement of fear, making her say he wouldn't hurt her while actively threatening her. And then he says there's a knife in there, and there still is. Showing it does nothing, but taking it out would, which is nothing new. Violet knew he had secrets that could harm them. This is merely an acknowledgement that she's right, not a movement towards honesty, nor a change in distrust. By the way, if anyone threatens you with a weapon and says, I would never hurt you with it, and then puts the weapon back, they might hurt you with it. But while I was writing this down, I realized something, and I don't know if you caught it either, because what he does is take her scenario in order to discredit her argument. He deflects her analogy and then distracts her with the blanket, which is something that someone else did. Xaden's doing exactly to Violet what her kingdom does to its people, controlling information in order to hold power.
Xaden Markham. It's his new last name.
And that was like the biggest thing to me. I was like, wait a minute. Once I read through it a few times, he's doing the exact same method that Markham did in class, that Violet called out for, that she's not seeing in Xaden. I'm fully against Xaden now.
Oh,
Yikes, dude.
But he's hot, Kyle.
Yeah, well, who cares
Don't forget
if he's
that part.
hot? He's also a jerk. Get a good guy and a dildo.
My God. Oh, my word.
It had to be said.
That.
It had to be said.
That had to be said.
You heard it
I'm
here
just,
first, folks.
Just saying the truth.
Wow.
Oh, gosh.
Wow.
And that's the Red Flag Diary. Oh, sorry.
You got to throw it. Wow.
I mean, yeah, some very compelling
Very
observations, really. I feel like I was going to say arguments, but I mean.
Yeah, the whole...
That's just-
Oh, I already forgot it now. But the whole Markham thing, well, I got it on my second or third read-through of it when I was trying to, make the diary. And I was like, holy crap, that's insane. I don't know, I hope it was done on purpose, because if so, great writing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, this book gets a lot of hate because a lot of people hate Violet and Xaden in this book because of these moments. And there is a lot that you almost feel like overlook because there's so much cute things he says and some of the romancy stuff and whatever. But there is some major red flags.
Red flags. Yeah. Really, my only major note here was just that I was melting at Xaden calling Violet love.
Oh my God, Connor.
Oh, man.
Totally agree with everything else, though. Yeah, for sure. Totally.
Yeah.
It's crazy to me that, I mean, this is the only second series we read, but it's weird to go off on a character and have you three agree with me.
This is new. No, yeah, I'm right there with you.
Generally speaking,
Generally speaking.
thanks. I'm inclined to be. Oh, well, first of all, their whole argument here at the end of this section is just so stupid. I'm inclined to lean more on his side because it would be weird just for him to randomly be like, oh yeah, by the way, like that deal I made with your mom, this is what that's about. That's just weird.
Yeah.
So, but at the same time, I kind of agree with her too.
Yeah.
She might not always have that confidence to be like, oh, well, I don't want to like push him away or have an awkward conversation, so I'm not going to ask him like literally everything about everything.
Right. It would be weird either way to ask about everything or for him to just literally trauma dump on her, for sure.
But like for this specific instance, he could be like, hey, I know what your mom told you, and when you're ready to talk about it, I'm ready to give you the answers.
Mm-hmm.
And then let her process and deal with. And then she can ask the questions when she's ready. Instead of this whole like, you're going to ask me today? No? Okay.
Yeah. Feeling brave with your questions, violence.
And that's what I go back and forth with. I see where he's coming from, but then it's like her argument is like, well, you never blah, blah, blah. From there, then he can make a choice to be like, okay, well, I'll go ahead and tell you. But then he just keeps saying like, well, you never ask me. And I'm just like, you guys are stupid.
Yeah, why aren't you fighting for us?
Yeah. And this whole argument boils down to like the whole knife thing being like, ha, there was a secret in there. Like, she knows, dude. She knows there's secrets in there. That's what she's worried about. Tell her what the secret is.
Yeah, and he told her straight up he would never tell her all the truths.
Yeah.
So, like,
true.
of course she's afraid to ask or, like, just thinks she's going to get shut down again. She's trying to, like, guard her own self from the hurt she's had from him before. So I get it.
The ones that really get me are, like, the things that, how is she supposed to have any idea what to ask? Like, about him being betrothed to Kat. Like, what on earth would have made her be like, oh, have you, by any chance, been engaged before and just never told me about this person? Like, he had never mentioned Kat to her. He had never mentioned any previous relationships to her. And he even said, like, I don't want to know about your exes, but that doesn't mean that she doesn't deserve to know about his, especially when she's going to encounter them at some point.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that get me.
Yeah. Anywho.
Yeah, but a lot of people say this book is one big miscommunication trope. I find it just to be a no communication trope. Like there's not a lot of miscommunication. Like no one believes some lie about the other one. They just don't tell each other anything. It's just a no communication.
Well, that's the thing too, though, is like Violet does tell him everything. He doesn't tell her anything. Like every time he comes back, she's like, "Oh my gosh, here's everything that's going down," and he's like, "Nice, babe."
That's a good point. You gonna ask me about my day?
Nice, babe. Take your pants off.
I mean, that's a compelling argument. Well, okay, so we're moving on, kind of. Finally, she figures out in a previous chapter, whenever they're in the cliffs and she's talking about how Quinn has a second signet, or like is related to someone in her family. So she probably won't have a second signet, but like it does happen. And she almost has this like weird realization. And the first time I read that paragraph, I was so confused because it just kind of like comes out of nowhere. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm just going to keep reading and hope something makes sense. And then we're here at the end of chapter 55, where Violet straight up asks, what's your second signet? And she's like, because you're either going to go crazy or you have a second signet. And since you're not, mad, you clearly have one. But it says his eyes widen and the blood drains from his face. His hands fall away. And for the first time, I think I've actually managed to shock Xaden Ryerson. She's like, I know you have one. And then he just doesn't answer. And he walks away from her. And she's like, so much for asking. And like all the things. And it's like after this whole argument and literally shoving a knife in her face. And then he doesn't answer her question. And I get that they're interrupted. I get that there's literally a horde of venom or whatever it is that's coming their way. But still, he doesn't even say like, we'll come back to this, or I promise I'll answer you later. Instead, he just like walks away.
Well, and the thing that bothers me most about this too is like there's been points in both of these books that people have had their conversation interrupted and then have a 3 to 4 hour flight, and then they land and they're like, oh, why didn't you ever tell me? We don't have time. I'm like, your signet cannot be more than 3 words. Just say it and then get out of there. You're going on
especially if you can mind talk.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's
yeah,
true.
I mean, most other writers wouldn't be able to speak during those flights, but like if they were close enough, you'd think they would be able to do that.
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't know. But the very last line of this chapter section that we're at, it says, a horde of wyvern had been spotted flying from Pavis toward the cliffs. And he says to her, are you ready to raise the wards, or would you like to wait until they're actually at the gates? And I was like, okay, sir. First of all, answer her question. But I actually highlighted this, not just because it's the last one, but the book says spotted.
Spottled.
Is that a word?
No.
It's not
A horde
the
of
right
wyvern
word.
has been spottled from flying from Pavis towards the cliffs.
Yeah,
So
it is a
upset that I
typo.
didn't catch that.
I'm pretty sure a horse
Okay.
can be spottled, but that's like
Oh.
a pattern on a horse.
No, it is a typo. There are a few in this book, actually. There's like a part where Devera is spelled wrong, and there's like a couple of random ones, but it's because this book was so rushed, because the publisher was just like riding the hype of Fourth Wing, and Iron Flame came out like less than 7 months later, I think. So it was like super duper rushed. And in the first edition print, there were even copies of Iron Flame where it was like missing a few chapters, or there were some where it was Iron Flame was the book, but on the spine on the outside it said Fourth Wing. So there were just a few like errors like that.
that.
with the-
Well,
yeah.
I guess I'll have to tell Miss James, my high school English teacher, that actually does fly in the professional world, and it's okay if my essay has a few typos.
Oh my God. Yeah, call her up. But you would think, now that it's been so long, this is the
Right.
digital copy that I'm
If
looking
it's in
at
the
when I'm
ebook.
copying
Right.
these
Yeah,
notes.
Kindle could just update
that
it.
they could
Yes.
just be like, update, like send it out there. But
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe they just didn't catch
I'm
that
sure
one.
it's
I'm not
harder
sure.
to do than you think, though, because I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure if they changed the errors, it still technically would have to be like a new edition, because it's sent out. And if they're doing a physical one, for sure. I'm not sure about Kindle.
Well, yeah.
But for a physical one, they would have to, not maybe new edition, but something. There's another word for it when like a.
Well, yeah, the physical ones would still be out there,
Yeah.
but I feel like a digital one, they just changed the master copy or
I don't
whatever
know.
that is.
Yeah.
Like re-upload the EPUB file or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyways, that's where we leave it. That's the end of this chapter section. So, gentlemen, coming straight out of chapter 55, we have to know, what do you think Xaden's second signet is?
I have been racking my brain. I'm coming up short, which bugs me. But I feel like it might be something that nobody else knows about, or maybe it's just like Bodhi and Garrick knows about it, maybe Imogen. It would be kind of funny if it was just like a really embarrassing one, and that's why he froze up. I don't know what that would be either, but
I love that idea.
I added my final thought here. I added after I read a little bit of Kyle's, but I wrote might be similar one to Dane's mind reading, just like maybe less intrusive, but still something that he used on Vi early on without her knowing, and maybe that's why he's like, "Ugh, I don't want to tell
That's a
you."
good one. Yeah.
Yeah, I had written that I think it has to do with the scalp tingles she was getting early on.
And I
'cause it
was
hasn't
bummed
been-
that I didn't think about that. I was so
Tingle
disappointed in myself.
watch.
Tingle watch. I
Bringing it
know,
back.
guys.
Tingle Watch, but it hasn't been mentioned in
It's
a while.
been a while since
Yeah.
Tingle Watch has been around.
Yeah,
But
so-
Xaden's not around as much, so.
Yeah, and I feel like maybe early on he was trying to get to know her somewhere. Like he has some sort of insight into people or something, and that was him checking her vibes early on or something. Which honestly would be pretty messed up, since that's pretty much distance dating her, and it would definitely go in the red flag journal if he was doing that.
Dating.
But condemning Dane at the same time, I feel like would be messed up for him to be like, "Oh yeah, Dane shouldn't do that." Tingle, tingle, tingle.
Wow.
Exactly.
Got the vibe checks.
You pass,
Well,
bro.
especially because we've seen Xaden's POV where he's talked crap on Dane for his signet.
Yeah.
Yeah, true.
It's not
Yeah.
just like Violet's POV of that. But
Yeah. Okay.
interesting. Well, guess what? You don't have to wait very long. I'm pretty sure we find out in chapter 56. As soon as we're done with the episode, you guys go read the
Spoiler
chapter
alert.
and then
Go find out.
send us a
Let's
text.
see here, chapter.
Kyle, no.
All right. Well, for some overall reflection, how are we feeling leading up to the end of book 2?
Cannot believe we're at the end.
We better face some venom. It seems like we will, with the wyverns heading their way. You know, while I love melodrama, I'm just ready for some real conflict, man. Like, instead of the dramatic conflict of all the heated, intense relationships, I feel like they've been building up to this huge war. So, let's get to it already, huh? Let's do
This
it.
is definitely more romantic-y
For
than
sure.
when we just read Throne of Glass, which is a lot more
A
fantasy.
lot more relationship building in this one than action.
A lot less
I need the
romance
action.
in this one than there was in Fourth Wing.
A lot less
Yeah.
what?
Romance.
Romance.
Oh, well, yeah.
But
Yeah, you just get like major spicy scenes, but Jasenia and Sawyer are cute over there on the side.
yeah. That's the thing, though. So I guess going into mine, like, I agree. I feel like a lot of the actual danger too could be summarized with, oh no, a danger. Insert minor character death. Oh wait, I'm superpower. Lightning bolt, lightning bolt, lightning bolt. Ah, we're good now.
Yeah.
And for all the drama there has been, I feel like there hasn't been any real growth. Like, Xaden and Violet are in the same argument for the whole book, which we've already said.
Yeah.
And the others haven't gotten enough screen time around their argument and the minor battles to grow themselves. Like, Sawyer does have his super B-story romance that we get like 3 glimpses into. And Kat did more character development in 5 chapters than Violet did in 50. So... Not a lot going on. I mean, like, we learn a lot of the lore, but there's just not a lot of anything else, really.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. So that kind of leads us into character thoughts. How you vibing with everybody? What's your vibe check? Favorites, least
Tingle, tingle,
favorites? Tingle, tingle, tingle. Where you at?
I am a little disappointed with how little we've seen of Brendan.
Oh, okay.
She thought he was dead for 6 years, and he's alive, and he might as well be dead with how little she's talked to him or spent time with him, honestly. What's going
Fair.
on? And also, where's Riddick? I mean, he's had a couple, like, one-liners, I feel like, in this book, but, like, seems like everybody's kind of dropped off the face of the earth in this section. And I don't care if she said thanks or whatever after the cave incident. Cat is the worst. I put in the gif in our notes of The Grinch Who Stole Christmas where he does loathe entirely. That's, yes, Cat for me. She's almost made my list with Varish and Sabine. You know, one more bad incident, and she's likely on that list.
Wow.
Yeah.
Even with the Deverelli silk robe.
Yes, absolutely.
What about without it?
Doesn't matter either way, I guess.
That's weird. See-through. Oh, man. For my part, even though I don't know what he's doing, that he's always 10 minutes away, Taryn is still my favorite. Guess
He's
now that I
always
think
10
about
minutes away. I didn't bring that up earlier, but I was still mad about it. He was like, 3 minutes. 1 minute. I was like, bro.
Yeah, I guess now that I think about it, he's probably macking down on scale, making up for all those lost weekdays. You know, like
Heyo.
any chance he can
Macking
get.
down on scale. Oh my god.
I also agree that Brennan is not even a thing. I saw that John wrote that. I was like, yeah, where has he been? But which is weird because he's like probably the reason why so many people bought into the next book in the series, because he was like literally the cliffhanger.
Oh, yeah.
Plot wise, anyway. I'm sure plenty of people bought it just to see Xaden make lightning strike thrice. But
Guilty.
honestly, he might be my least favorite, just in terms of like so much potential
Yeah.
and disappointing lack of action. Like there's
Okay.
just
Brennan?
yeah, he didn't do nothing.
I mean, he's literally knocking on the door right now, telling them there's
That's great.
There's
Thanks for the
Wyvern
news,
coming.
bud.
Yeah,
Back to talking
glad
to the
you came
assembly.
back
in the
to
assembly room.
life to be
Alert,
a message
alert.
boy. Guys, there's dragons here.
Okay, well, I'm dying to know what you guys think is going to happen in the last 11 chapters of this book, because we are about to finish the whole dang thing. So what are your thoughts and theories for the end of Iron Flame?
Just a couple here. Maybe they might get into a situation where Violet gets captured, or maybe Xaden gets captured and then she decides, or she like has to go with the Venom to save him, kind of like the Sage hinted at in her dream. It's also very interesting to me that the Venom basically bypassed like a huge portion of land, and even Corden, right? That's like the big city that they went straight to, which leads me to believe that there's some collusion in there in some way.
With like the Venom and like Takaris, or like Corden in general?
Maybe not Takaris,
Okay.
but I don't. Maybe just with, I don't know, some
from
Basgiath
Navarre?
people or Navarre people.
Okay.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
just maybe not working with them, but not keeping them in check necessarily.
Okay. Yeah.
Or they're being, I mean, we kind of already know that they're being strategic, like in their overtaking. They're obviously coming closer to Erasia it just seems like there's some major motive to their movements. And also maybe that's literally just them trying to get a hold of Violet, since, you know, she's been having the dreams and he's been, the sage or whatever has been kind of hinting towards some of that stuff. Just seems like the Venin know a lot more than we might think. And as I was writing this, I was like, oh, if that doesn't smell like Melgren collusion, I don't know what does. Dude already knows what's up, right? Like, maybe they're in cahoots, letting cadets and other riders go pretty easily to Erasia. Like, he jumped straight up to the list as I was writing this.
Ooh, the list.
Yeah.
Different list. The Varish and Sabine and Cat list is a different list.
Got it.
Yeah, for sure. Yep.
All right, Kyle.
I forgot to write it, but I do still think I said last episode that somebody's got to turn Venin. I feel like that's still going to happen with all this description of what Venin looked like and stuff. Someone's going to pop up that way. But I think they are either going to get into a little tiff with those from Besgaeth, or Besgaeth is going to come crawling back on their hands and knees, begging them like, oh, please use your power. All our cities are falling to Venin. We need your help, blah, blah, blah. Nice. I also think we're due a big old fat juicy death of a friend or family. And after thinking through everyone,
why do you gotta say it like that?
I think it has to be family, but Mira or Lilith specifically, because then maybe Brennan would get off his butt and back into the main story.
Yikes.
That's about it. I'm sure we'll find out Xaden's second signet soon, and we'll say, ooh, I have to rethink all the times in the book that this has happened now. And like, we'll reread it and be like, oh, he's doing it right now. But I also don't think Endarna is also a black dragon, because they keep mentioning all the colors that shine off her scales and iridescent colorations and such, like silver and red and green and purple, I think are all mentioned at one point. Plus 2 dragons I get, but 2 black dragons? Impossible, am I right? I did put that someone's going Venin. I agreed with John. Someone's going Venin. That's it. Then I put Danny Venin because it reminded me of Danny Phantom. I'm going Venin.
Danny Venin.
I was like, who's Danny?
That wasn't in the pronunciation guide.
Lauren didn't watch cartoons growing up, so she doesn't get the reference.
I watched Veggie Tales. Anyways, that takes us to the cry counter. I don't think anybody cried this episode. There wasn't anything
I did not.
tear worthy.
Yeah.
So that's it. We're all
tied 3 for
Connor
3.
And I are at 3, and boys are at big old dragon's egg.
Yep.
Or wyvern egg, because apparently they hatched.
Big old dookie.
Big old dookie. Dookie on both of them. That's good.
And on that note, that's a wrap on episode 10. Next week, we will be chatting about the end of Iron Flame with chapters 56 to 66. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode, and follow us at Between Pages and Friends on Instagram and TikTok for podcast schedules, announcements, behind the scenes, and even more book-related nonsense.
And for even more book-related nonsense, don't forget to check out our Patreon. Hit up betweenpagesandfriends.com for our Patreon link, merch, our Amazon storefront full of our must-haves, GoodReads, StoryGraphs, links to stock our TBRs, and so much more. Until next time, stay wordy, stay nerdy, don't stress, and stay blessed.
Stay blessed.
Bye-bye.
All right, back to reading. It was never on.
You do.
From the very beginning.
Peace out, Dookie.